Welcome to This Week in the NFL. I'm Kendall Capps.
And I'm Andrew Williamson.
And we're here to break down this week's NFL games. Well, Andrew, it's Week 8, and we reach a midway point of the season. We've got some marquee games coming up. On top of the list, we got Brett Favre going back to Green Bay, Old Lambeau. What do you think?
Crucial game. I think whoever wins this game's got the lead on the track to the division title.
Inside track, yeah, I agree. Green Bay, they play well at home. They beat Chicago at home earlier this year. 2-1 on the season at home, 4-2 overall. They actually end up leading Minnesota in most of the statistics, offensively and defensively. Things could go their way.
Yeah, I think obviously, you got to think how is Favre going to perform. His first game back in Green Bay. It's going to be cold, 30 degree, I think is the forecast. But Favre's been there before. What's the crowd reaction going to be like? I think Brett Favre may expect it to be mixed, but I'm betting it's going to be a pretty hostile crowd.
Yeah, I would think so. Given the way things ended there, it was a little rough patch between the two. But yeah, he's used to the weather. I think he'll do pretty well. In that Minnesota running game, Green Bay against the run has been pretty strong all year.
And Pittsburgh was actually able to stop Minnesota's running game for the most part.
They were. But Minnesota, Brett Favre this year, amazingly so, despite being almost 40 years of age, his arm, it's just been completely rejuvenated. He's had a great year.
For now. We'll wait till week 13 and let me know how it's still holding up.
That's true. Last year, with the Jets, he started out pretty well, and then he had injuries as the season went along. But I think that's why he didn't go into training camp. He held out until the last possible moment.
And that's why you get Adrian Peterson to run the ball for you.
That and the Williams brothers on the D-line.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's... When you look at Minnesota, they have the phases down of what you want. They can stop the run, they can run the ball themselves, and they have a quarterback who can play well.
When you look at the Packers, surprisingly, the Packers are averaging more rushing yards per game than the Vikings.
Yeah, it's Ryan Grant along with Brandon Jackson and a couple of the other guys that they fill in. They're pretty deep at that position. It should be a pretty interesting matchup. Who do you think is going to pull this game out?
Well, I like the Packers coming off their shutout in Cleveland. I think Cleveland's a good team to get healthy against. I don't think they're going to let Brett Favre walk into Lambeau and take it.
Yeah, I agree.
He's going to be there. Vikings coming off a tough loss to Pittsburgh. I'd expect more of the same from him this week, and hopefully we'll see him in the playoffs at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Minnesota will keep it tough. It'll be a great game, filled with tons of emotion, but I also like Green Bay in that game.
That takes us to Game 2. Rematch of one of the most exciting games of the year so far. Dolphins at the Jets in New York.
Yeah, earlier this year, that was a shootout, back and forth the whole second half.
Shootout came down to the last play. If you recall, the Jets players at the end of that game bragging on the Dolphins, called them not having a real offense, and the Dolphins are kind of offended at that. So I wonder if there might be some emotions flaring, divisional rivalry, and the Jets coming straight off their swamping of Oakland, and the Dolphins with their letdown against New Orleans.
That's right.
Could be another intriguing matchup.
And Chad Henne, he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable now that he's played a couple weeks, started a few games. He's starting to look a lot better. Ted Ginn will actually catch a pass.
Yeah, I think you have to be worried about Ted Ginn and the lack of a big receiver in Miami to throw the ball to for him. Any quarterback's going to struggle when your leading receiver is 6 foot tall and can't catch.
Yeah. Clearly when you have that running game, you want to be able to utilize it. And to be able to do so, teams bring that safety in the box, and you need to be able to throw it over the top. And Hartline had a big catch last week, but will he be able to produce every week? That remains to be seen.
And in the game 2 weeks ago, now Ginn had a 53-yard catch, and it was Mark Sanchez that looked like the rookie, as opposed to Hiddy, who was starting his first game. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Sanchez works off of the Dolphins' defense, which is, I think, bottom of the league, or among the lowest in the league in pass defense, to see if he can maybe have some of the successes that Drew Brees has had against them. Because the last game he threw, I think, 3 picks. Came out underperformed.
Yeah. It should be a pretty even matchup, and not to mention it's another divisional game. Those are always pivotal toward making it to the playoffs. They're both chasing New England right now in the division. New England having the bye this week. The winner will at least pull a little bit closer. Miami will follow up with a game against New England the following week.
I would say the winner of this game could go on to make a wild card push, and the loser of this game is going to have a really tough time, because this loss would put the Jets at, I think, 1-3 in the NFC East.
Yeah.
The Dolphins are low now, but if they win, it puts them at 3-0. So I think the winner of this game is definitely in reasonable standing position, and the loser's got a lot to go home and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, keeps you in contention. It's also a conference game for wild card purposes. These are the games you need to win. So that's going to bring us to the Giants and Philly, another NFC divisional game, a huge game. Winner takes first place. Philly coming off Monday night, so they're going to have to be coming off a short week.
I think also this is one of the first times we really got to see these teams play respectable opponents. The Giants, after getting blown out by the Saints, both teams have had pretty much cupcake opponents for the better part of their early schedule. And now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of the NFC East games and see who's going to really stake their claim for the division lead here.
And both teams know how important this game is. The Giants, number 2 in the league against the pass. You would think they would be able to slow down that Philly offensive attack, especially if Westbrook is unable to go, which he was knocked out with a concussion in the second quarter on Monday. So if he's unable to go, can the rookie McCoy step in? I don't know if he's quite as versatile. It's certainly going to be a very interesting game and a well-played game. They always play tough games when these two go against each other.
I'd have to say, with Westbrook in the lineup, I like the Eagles. With Westbrook out, I like the Giants by a landslide.
I gotta say, despite the fact that I like Philly, I like that pass defense. I like their overall defense against the run. They're also one of the better teams. But the Giants know how to win key games. The last 3 years, it seems like Eli has really taken a turn that I personally never thought he would take, but he did in 2007, and it wasn't his fault. They lost to the Eagles in the playoffs last year. I think the Giants rebound after that tough loss last week, and they come back and get the job done.
There you go. Well, that takes us to Broncos-Ravens. The undefeated Broncos.
Who would have thought that?
Every game at the last second, and the Ravens, who are finding ways to lose games at the last second, week in and week out.
It's a strange thing. If anything, you would have told me Denver was 6-0 and Baltimore was 3-3. I would have thought it would have been the complete opposite. Going into the season, I don't think Denver had any hopes this high. Trading away Jay Cutler, bringing in Kyle Orton, who...
Well, and you've got to feel good to see Jay Cutler struggling and Orton succeeding as a Broncos fan.
Doing
as
really
a Bears fan, maybe not so much.
Not so much as a Bears fan.
But, well, what's your take on the Ravens' defense? It hasn't been as stout this year as it traditionally you'd be led to believe. You watch the Ravens, you think they're coming with a number one defense. This year, the offense has really been more the attraction.
I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, the offense's ability all of a sudden to be able to put points on the board. It's putting the opposing team back on the field. But at the same time, they're getting older. Ray Lewis is in his mid-30s now. Bart Scott, some of these guys that were in 2001 won that Super Bowl. They're now in their mid-late 30s. They've been around for quite some time. And when you've been playing physical positions for that long, time, it takes its toll.
But I don't know if you heard, next week, Chad Johnson called out the Ravens. He said, we want the Ravens. So they've got Cincinnati waiting on the flip side of this game as well.
So, wow. So, I mean, Baltimore could overlook them. But then again, when you're playing a team 6-0, you're probably not going to overlook them. I mean, it's going to be a great game. Baltimore, like you said, they've lost so many close games. They should have, if they can make a field goal, they beat Minnesota. New England, they drop a pass. Late in the game on the 5-yard line, that could have been a winning drive. I mean, they've lost a lot of really close games, and Denver has won by the itty-gritty in most of their games.
I think I'm taking the team that wins at the end. I'm going with Denver, go 7-0.
You are? I got to say, I like the stench of desperation, and I like Baltimore. I think they realize, coming off a bye, I think, even though everything is against them, all the stats say you should take Denver. Denver's playing well. I doubt them every week. But they need this win. They lose this game, they fall to 3-4 in the season. They're going to be behind a few teams for wild card standings. It would just be really tough for them to be able to make a playoff push if they lose this game.
And if the Ravens lose, the referees might want to hide from Ray Lewis at the end of the game.
Yeah, you very well might.
Be an issue.